Before we get started in carrying out the taping process, let's take a look at the range of jointing products and accessories which can be used to carry out the work. Gyproc joint filler is a gypsum-based setting material for bulk filling and secondary filling of plasterboard joints and has a 90-minute working time. Gyproc joint filler is used in stage 1 and 2 of the traditional 3-stage jointing process. Gyproc EasyFill is a combined setting and air-drying gypsum-based material for both bulk filling and finishing of plasterboard joints and has a 60-minute working time. Gyproc EasyFill is a low-shrinkage, 2-stage jointing process. Gyproc EasyFill 45 is a combined setting and air-drying gypsum-based material for both bulk filling and finishing of plasterboard joints and has a 45-minute working time. Gyproc EasyFill 45 is a low-shrinkage, 2-stage jointing process which has a set at 45 minutes. Gyproc joint cement and Gyproc ready-mix joint cement are air-drying materials designed for the finishing stage over Gyproc joint filler in hand jointing or for all application stages within the mechanical jointing process. Gyproc ProMix light joint cement is an air-drying material designed for the finishing stage over Gyproc joint filler in hand jointing or for all application stages within the mechanical jointing process. This formula provides excellent workability, very low shrinkage, easy sanding, and is compatible with the majority of airless spraying equipment where this may be required. Gyproc joint tape is a paper tape designed for reinforcing flat joints and internal angles. The tape can be applied manually or is used with the mechanical jointing system. The tape has chamfered edges, a centre crease, and perforations within the tape. You may also see Thistle Pro Tape FT50 being used on hand jointing. This is a self-adhesive glass fibre mesh tape, favoured by some people for its speed of application. However, it is important to note that this tape does not provide the same levels of crack resistance as Gyproc joint tape. Gyproc corner tape is a paper tape bonded to 2 corrosion-resistant metal strips for reinforcing external angles around windows or in low traffic areas. This can also be used on splayed internal angles if required. Gyproc drywall metal angle bead is a perforated galvanized steel angle bead designed for jointing and reinforcement of external angles. It has a higher degree of impact resistance than Gyproc corner tape. Gyproc drywall arch bead is an extruded UPVC bead designed for curved applications to arches, reveals and bulkheads on ceilings, which can go down to 250mm radius. Gyproc drywall metal and plastic edge beads are used to provide a neat finish, as well as reinforcement to a cut edge of a Gyproc plasterboard, with one perforated leg to accommodate Gyproc jointing material. Plastic edge bead will accommodate 12.5mm Gyproc plasterboard, with the metal edge bead available for both 12.5mm and 15mm Gyproc board range. Where any control joint occurs within a building, this needs to be accommodated and carried through within the partition or lining system. The Gyproc control joint is capable of accommodating up to 7mm of expansion or contraction in Gyproc plasterboard joints. Gyproc drywall primer is a general purpose primer which is applied to the whole surface once jointing is finished and sanded. As an alternative to Gyproc drywall primer, Gyproc drywall sealer is a specially formulated product which can be used to allow steam stripping of wallpaper from Gyproc plasterboard surfaces when used in a 2-coat application. Gyproc drywall sealer can also be used to provide a level of vapour control to the plasterboard surface. Before we start hand taping, it is important to check to see if any pre-filling is required. If we have any gaps greater than 3mm and any cut edge of plasterboard abutting a tapered edge plasterboard, pre-filling will be required. It is worth noting that you would always use tapered edge plasterboard where hand or mechanical jointing is carried out. We will be using EasyFill for the hand taping process and EasyFill 45 for the pre-filling work that needs to be carried out. This will allow us to start the jointing process at an earlier stage. Using clean water, only mix up the amount of material you will need to save wasting material. Make sure you mix the material in a well-ventilated area and that you are wearing the correct personal protective equipment. Mix the EasyFill 45 to the required consistency. This will be a stiffer consistency than mixing thistle finish coat plasters. It is worth noting that the thinner the material, the more shrinkage will take place due to the water content in the thinner mix. Work your way around the room, filling in any gaps that are 3 mm or wider. Also fill any joints between a cut edge of board and tapered edge board to provide a flat surface for jointing. Where gypframe metal lining systems are installed, any screw fixings into timber studs or ceiling joists will require the screw heads within the field of the board to be filled with the same number of coats as the jointing process. This can be done at the same time as the pre-filling. We are now ready to start the jointing process. We have already mixed up our EasyFill, so we are ready to go. It is important to note that in addition to a hand board and trowel, there are a number of tools that can be used for hand jointing, including a range of jointing knives, which are commonly used. We will demonstrate the range of tools used during the video. Where you have butt joints on a ceiling or a wall, for example a staircase wall, they will be taped before the tapered edge joints. Apply a band of jointing material to the board edge joint, approximately 50 mm wide. Measuring 1 Gyproc joint tape now allows us to use this as a template to cut further lengths of tape to the required length. Apply the Gyproc joint tape and bed into position using the toe of your trowel or a taping knife, placing any material back onto the tape you have bedded in as you progress. Once the whole tape is bedded in, apply a further coat of material 200 mm wider than the joint. Butt-end joints require a wider band of material, as the joint tape is applied on the surface of the board. Now, onto the tapered edge joints. Apply a band of material approximately 50 mm wide down the whole length of the joint. Apply the Gyproc joint tape and bed into position using the toe of your trowel or a taping knife, placing any material back onto the tape you have bedded in as you progress. Once the whole tape is bedded in, apply a further coat of material slightly wider than the tapered edge joint. This is called the bulk filling coat. If blisters appear on the joint, this is a sign that you have not had enough material behind the tape, or you have put too much pressure on the joint when bedding the tape in. As remedial work, cut the tape, peel the tape back, and apply further material before bedding the tape in and bulk filling out. Continue to bed all the flat surface joints. At internal angles, we need to pre-crease the Gyproc paper tape. The tape comes with a crease line down the centre of the tape. Using a 50mm paintbrush, apply Gyproc EasyFill down the internal corner, making sure you apply enough material to bed the tape into position, to prevent the risk of blisters occurring. Position the paper tape into the corner. Holding the tape at the top, Use a 100mm wide taping knife to bed the tape into position, bedding in down one side of the corner and then the other side. Using the taping knife again, apply a band of material down one side of the joint, making sure you do not have the angle of the knife too steep in applying a thin layer of material. We now have two options. We can progress to do other internal angles to allow the corner to set on one side so we are working to a dry edge, or alternatively, we can do both sides of the joint as demonstrated. And use an internal corner trowel to overcome the wet edge at the internal angle. Continue to complete all the internal angles. Now we come on to the external angles. We have two alternatives: Gyproc corner tape or drywall metal angle bead. We will demonstrate applying both products. Before we start, we need to check to see if we have any cut edges of board at the external angles. If we do, we need to control the suction by either sealing with a dilution of thistle gyp prime or, as is demonstrated, apply water just before applying the joint material to control the suction of the exposed core. Firstly, Gyproc corner tape. Cut the tape to the required length with tin snips. Apply Gyproc EasyFill to both sides of the corner. Position the corner tape onto the external corner and, using your fingers in a pinching method, begin to bed the corner tape into position. Pinching the tape back gives you an edge to work to with subsequent coats of joint material. Using your trowel or a taping knife, bed the edge of the paper tape into position. Then, coat out the external corner with a bulk filling coat of Gyproc EasyFill on both sides of the corner, taking care not to apply too much pressure, as this will flatten the corner tape and lose the edge you had created to work to. Now for drywall metal angle bead. Cut the angle bead to the required length with tin snips. Apply Gyproc EasyFill to both sides of the corner. Bed the angle bead into the material and move up and down to bed into position. Go over the corner with a taping knife or trowel to clean off the bedding in material. Then coat out the external corner with a bulk filling coat of Gyproc EasyFill on both sides of the corner. Continue to complete all the external angles. At this stage, all tapes and beads have been applied with the first coat of jointing material. Before we start the second coat application, if the Gyproc EasyFill is set but not dry, use the edge of a trowel or taping knife to remove any high points. If the Gyproc EasyFill is dry, give the joints a light sand with a pole sander, as is demonstrated. A hand sander or mechanical dust extraction equipment can also be used. 120 grit sandpaper is typically used for the sanding process for pole and hand sanders. Having mixed our Gyproc EasyFill, We are now ready to apply the second coat of material to the joints. Apply the material to the tapered edge joint, creating a band of material approximately 300 mm wide. Butt end joints on plasterboard are completed at the same time as the tapered edge joint, with the material being approximately 500 mm wide. Apply the second coat of material to both sides of the internal angles with either a trowel or taping knife, using the same method that we used for the first stage of jointing. Once this is done, go down the angle with an internal angle trowel to overcome the wet edge in the corner. Apply the second coat to the external angles, continuing around windows in a continuous application. Remember to spot any screw heads with a second application of material. Once the second coat has dried, it is ready for a final sand. Once sanded, the surface is ready for a coat of Gyproc drywall primer or Gyproc drywall sealer prior to decoration. It is important to note that hand jointing can be combined with using mechanical jointing boxes on flat joints to walls and ceilings. First, apply the jointing process to the bulk fill stage with the hand jointing tools. The box applications are a 10-inch box and 12-inch box, which are connected to a handle. There is a setting dial on the top of the box from 1 to 5. The higher the setting, the less material will be applied. Easy fill can be used with a second coat box application. However, we will demonstrate the applications with Gyproc ProMix Lite, which will require 2 applications with both the 10 and 12-inch box. First, add some water to the ProMix Lite and mix to get the required consistency. Then, using a mechanical jointing pump and filler nozzle, fill the 10-inch box through the open face. Lightly sand down all the joints before applying the boxing process. Have the setting on 3. It is important to note that this setting may vary depending on the standard of boarding being taped. Holding the handle horizontally in front of you, apply the brake at the bottom of the handle. This will give you a guide as to the angle of the box as it is applied to the wall. Once the box is applied against the wall, release the brake. Apply pressure onto the box and come down the wall. As you get towards the bottom of the joint, apply the brake again, come away from the wall. Keeping the brake on, turn the box over and complete the bottom of the joint. Feather in the joints with a broad knife and cement pan, as is demonstrated. On ceilings, box the long tapered edge joints first. Feather in the joints with a broad knife and cement pan, as is demonstrated. On butt end board joints on the ceiling, come along either side of the joint. Feather in the joints with a broad knife and cement pan, as is demonstrated. Once the 10-inch box application has dried out, give the joints a light sand and complete with the 12-inch box. The setting on the 12-inch box can be 4 or 5, depending on the standard of boarding being taped. On ceilings, box the long tapered edge joints first. On butt-end board joints, run the 12-inch box down the middle of the joint. And again, feather in with the broad knife and cement pan. Once the 12-inch box has dried out and the surfaces have been sanded, the surface is ready for a coat of Gyproc drywall primer or Gyproc drywall sealer prior to decoration.